going on. It was breathtaking and amazing testimony. Open your eyes, and we can't let this continue to happen to our country. The U.S. Supreme Court had a monumental hearing on immunity. I heard the meeting was quite amazing, and the justices were on their game. Presidential immunity is imperative, or you practically won't have a country anymore.
Donald Trump unleashing on the dueling Democrat lawfare show trials against him. In a Manhattan courtroom, the hush money one playing out with a fellow named Pecker on the stand. And in D.C., the Supreme Court hearing arguments on his immunity claim against Biden's DOJ. But before it all started, the former president getting a hero's welcome from construction workers.
We love Trump! We love Trump! USA! USA! USA!
The Supremes seem to agree that a sitting president has immunity in some cases, but they disagree on the extent. As for Pecker, Trump's team finally getting their chance to probe him after Bragg's prosecutors went hard on the former National Enquirer head honcho. I did not write this. Pecker testified that bearing negative Trump stories was about protecting his campaign, not his family. Pecker also says that he caught and killed for many famous people who were running for office, like former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Barack Obama's chief of staff and former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. But one thing prosecutors haven't clarified yet is what law did any of this break? This is the thing, Judge. It seems like the goal has always been to confuse the public. No one gets beyond the phrases like hush money or fake electors. And if you ask a Democrat to explain in detail why Trump's in court and what's going on, they don't know. They'll say like 91 charges, and they don't have any clue. What do you think?
Well, I think it's great to have you back at the table.
Thank you. I feel wonderful.
Yes, and you look wonderful, too. Look, the prosecution is alleging that this is a conspiracy, which means it involves more than two people, to promote or affect an election by unlawful means. Any prosecutor knows that the most important witness is the first witness. David Pecker was not a significant witness for the prosecution, and I'll tell you why. Because there is no crime. An NDA is something that celebrities engage in all the time. People in the science community and the tech community sign NDAs all the time. This is just a way of doing business. So if you look at the business record in question, it says for legal services. Okay, the money is to Cohen for legal services. So if they're trying to say, no, it's really for a federal election, then why is it that the feds didn't prosecute? Why is it that the feds looked at this and made a decision not to cover it? And what I don't like about what happened today was that Pecker said he assumed it was for the campaign. And we know Pecker didn't have any conversation with Trump about this. There is no direct conversation. So that he assumed it, I would have been on my feet and objected. But this judge isn't going to sustain a rightful objection by Donald Trump. And finally, how is it that Pecker is going forward alleging all of this when he said nothing? A non-disclosure, a non-compete, I mean, that is something that is part of the law. I'll tell you why. Pecker has signed an immunity agreement, and these prosecutors are so tough, whether it's Colangelo from the Department of Justice that Joe Biden sent down to the local DA to help. Pecker knows if he goes one line away from what he's supposed to say, his butt is going to be shipped to the state prison. And that's why this whole thing is so absurd. It's a nothing burger.
There you go. Dana, we've talked about this before, that it's hard to follow all of these cases, but that's the purpose.
Yeah, I think so, too. It was basically flood the zone, if you know that term.
Where is that from? Sports?
I'm not sure.
Water polo?
Maybe from the water park.
Yes.
I don't actually really don't know where that's from. But anyway, flooding the zone. Maybe it's basketball.
Football.
Okay, anyway.
Typical.
More to come and one more thing on that. Anyway, yes, I do think they're confused. I don't think Democrats can answer it, but I do know this. I follow Ruth Marcus. She's a liberal columnist at the Washington Post. She said, why, oh, why did this have to be the first case to get attention? Because it is a terrible case to all the reasons that the judges laid out. Then I read about the legal scholar that the New York Times gave a lot of space to for an op-ed yesterday. Well, I think it's in today's paper. And he said, I used to think it was a mistake, and now I think it's a historical, huge mistake. Like, he thinks it's a gigantic problem that the Democrats are doing this and that it will hurt them forever. Jonathan Turley said something good today. He said, Alvin Bragg is probably the best lawyer Donald Trump has right now. The Manhattan case is legally absurd. What I thought was amazing today is President Trump starts his day by getting up and going to visit construction workers, surprising them, shaking hands. And what do they chant? We love Trump. We love Trump. And there's all these videos now that are going viral. Biden doesn't have anything like that today. I mean, he's up there giving away a lot of money in Syracuse for chips. Okay, great. But he's not actually doing the campaigning. And that's why I think you see these battleground state polls either holding steady for Trump or even gaining in places like North Carolina.
That's fun. It's a great contrast, Jesse, the USA chants with Trump. And on the Democrat side, you have protesters chanting death to America.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time Biden was with construction workers, he pointed in the guy's face and said, "You're full of ash, baby." And I'm just wondering, because the Democrats have been saying Trump's this genocidal dictator, and he's going to get into office, he's going to murder journalists, and he's never going to leave office. You'd expect him to get in this courtroom and start, like, lunging at the judge, like that felon in Vegas, like Superman, or like some maniac starting to, like, represent himself, like some crazy man, or like show up to court an hour late like Michael Jackson did with his pajamas. What's he doing? I mean, he's like the most well-behaved genocidal dictator we've ever seen. Shows up on time, he sits and he listens, he takes direction, he pays his fines, posts his bonds, and he's actually showing deference and discipline, but deference to the institutions that the Democrats say he's trying to blow up. He's actually refuting all of the hoaxes they're throwing at him by sitting pretty docilely and obeying the corrupt sham trial that he's going through. The Supreme Court justices are hearing this case, and I'm just imagining if they don't give a president immunity, then I'm going to get a lawyer to charge Joe Biden with human smuggling. And I'm going to get a lawyer to charge Joe Biden when he leaves with cocaine possession, because they found coke at his house. Now, if they found coke at my house, even if it was Jesse Jr.'s and he didn't cop to it, that charge falls on me.
Absolutely.
And I'm also, I'm going to charge him too with killing whales, because his windmills are slaughtering the endangered species, and that's 10 to 20. I'm going to charge Barack Obama with forgery, because we know the birth certificate wasn't real.
Jesse.
But I can find a lawyer to do that just as ridiculous as Alvin Bragg, to file frivolous charges against ex-presidents. As long as they link it to some partisan judge, you can just burn out a former president in legal fees.
There you go. Harold, Judge Jeanine brought up Matthew Colangelo. He was this D.C. prosecutor, worked for the Biden DOJ, leaves D.C. and, surprise, comes to a smaller court. Why? Because to handle the Trump case, how is that not collaboration between the White House and prosecution?
We should ask him. I don't think. First of all, I'm glad to see you back. You look great. You look
Thank
good.
you.
I echo everything
You
the
look the
judge said.
same.
Thank you, sir.
Nice
Amazing.
The president is innocent until proven guilty, as you said. Judge, I would push back on one thing you said, that Mr. Pecker actually signed a non-prosecution agreement. So he'd be prosecuted. That's what's probably in his head. He wouldn't be shipped to jail right away.
He'd be prosecuted and convicted because he agreed to testify a certain way.
Right. Well,
Okay,
so it's a
and they're called that. That's what it is. It's immunity.
It's a non-prosecution agreement. They're different things, but it's a non-prosecution agreement. Third thing is, Pecker testified today. Third thing is, he did the right thing, Dan. Everything you've been saying all week long. Waking up this morning and seeing him in Harlem, that juxtaposition of that picture, it should say to the White House, even more what you're trying to do, you got to do more of. I don't understand why President Biden won't release whatever executive orders he's going to do around the border. He should be doing that now. Because I think what the president is doing, what former President Trump is doing, is pretty effective outside of the courtroom before he goes in, and even when he's up working with people or shaking hands with people, and the Trump thing being yelled in, his people yelling for him. Finally, Mr. Pecker's testimony today I thought was interesting. Haven't seen anything to convince me that Mr. Trump is guilty, but I differ a little bit, Judge. I think he laid out a story. I think the prosecution thinks if they can show that there was an agreement amongst a few people, including President Trump, or at least between two entities, President Trump's team and Mr. Pecker's team, around payments for certain things, to either kill stories or to plant stories, all in an effort to benefit the campaign. I think you said, well, Judge, Mr. Pecker said that he assumed that all of this was for the campaign and not to protect his family. which is where the legal rub begins to come in. Again, I hadn't seen anything that persuade me, but I understand what Mr. Bragg and his team is trying to do, and we'll see if they get there. But Mr. Trump's got to be pleased with how he's entering the courtroom, because I think that, again, the pictures, the optics of him campaigning are about as powerful and as good as he can do not being on the campaign trail.
There you go, an endorsement of Donald Trump from Harold Ford Jr.
I'm for Joe Biden, but I'm saying that all I'm saying is Trump's doing a good job campaigning.
Hey, Sean Hannity.